Huh. That was weird. Isn't there a guy usually... What's going on? All right.
I miss him, Abe. I'm coming out hot. Really, I miss that man.
I kind of miss him.
Yeah.
Like, so he calls me like every day. The guy who's normally narrates and announces us as co-hosts.
Wow.
This is Directorpiece Theater, by the way. God, I feel like a pleb having to announce myself. Like, what are we paying this guy for? He calls me every day. I think we should something's happening. Like, we need to figure this out or fire him. I don't know what the right thing to do is.
Like search for him, or maybe just add him to the show. As
his manager. Like,
oh yeah, we should manage him.
What
That's
do
what we
I
should
do? I guess.
Yeah, we should say like, hey man, we'll take you out around town. We get 10%, 15 really, but 10.
Yeah. He's always asking for points on the back end of podcasts.
Points. Yeah, he gets.
I don't know what even that means.
He gets points on my thesis. He gets extra points on that thesis.
He's a real dick.
Essay points. Yeah, we've really come full circle with this bit.
I mean,
really
frankly, I've never liked him, but you know, here we are, and here we are at Directorpiece Theater.
Yes, we are. Definitely here.
Yeah, man. Hey, Adam.
Hey,
how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you for asking that. How are you doing?
I'm excellent, man. I got to watch 2 movies in preparation for this.
Ooh, 2 good movies.
Just one for yours, but we record these in doubles. So
yes, we do.
That's why I'm talking to you a month in the future maybe for this episode. But yeah, I watched 2 movies. I had some tea.
I did too. What kind of tea are you drinking these days?
I echinacea. I'm an echinacea boy.
Oh yeah, you're a medical boy. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. I cannot plug Winter Dream tea enough from Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. I think I've plugged it on a different podcast. Never made a dime from them. But maybe, hey, listen, give me some money because I love Winter Dream tea so much.
Yeah, where's your points?
Yeah, where are my points on that advertisement? I think everybody's getting points. Everybody's getting points.
Don't you familiar with the word vig?
I am, and I always instantly frown at a person who uses it as though it's not a bit. Instantly frown. Just, vig. Here we go, bro.
Yeah. I always want to use. I want to use that word all the time. It makes me feel like a pool shark or a gangster, or just a rough about town.
Right. It's just like as soon as somebody's talking about vig, it's like, oh, are you running the money line? You putting a teaser together?
Something clandestine is happening.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna get points on that over the spread, over under, yeah.
Let's all bring Vig back, everybody.
The last time I heard it used as though it wasn't a bit or on a gambling podcast was that show Luck. The dentist, the Dustin Hoffman.
It's
joint.
Dustin Hoffman. Yeah, and it's David Milch.
Yes, and it had many horse deaths, which I believe was ultimately its demise.
Yeah, they shut that down.
Yeah, well, I think 4 horses died. It was like not a small amount.
They were not taking care of the horses, or they're using like shitty horses. I don't remember the story. Point is, they weren't taking care of them, and they should have. That's the point.
That's incredible that you even implied that they had discount horses, and that was the problem.
Yeah, right. I wasn't implying that was the problem. I was just stating.
Amazing. They just also had shitty horses. I know this. I look at horses.
Well, I mean,
Amazing. Amazing.
It's just I look at it. I've seen a horse.
Yeah.
I've seen him.
All these years I've been saying to myself, why does Abe own so many Panama hats? And little did I know it was you down at the Ponies taking in the show.
Ponies.
Had no idea.
I'm a bet man.
Yeah, you
I gotta
are.
stop betting on everything. Yeah. I'm just betting constantly, man.
Yeah, you are. 2-1 says I'll stop today.
Gotta get that vig.
All right, that's enough. That's enough.
Let's start doing the thing that we do, which is we're 2 directors and we talk about direction.
Yes, we do.
Through a movie. This is your episode. Everyone's cheering.
Thank you for the cheers.
That's the sound. Yeah. So what's the movie?
Yeah,
and let's talk.
I chose 1998's indie hit, I think it's fair to say. Or if not indie, it's certainly a mildly cult classic film, A Murder of Crows. starring Cuba Gooding Jr. Now, Abe, I want you to know something. In 1998, I was working at a Blockbuster Video.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I was. It was in Brea. And you know what I used to do, Abe? I'd have
watch Murder Crows?
Yes, and I'd have regulars come in and be like, "Yo, you always know what the good movies are. Recommend the good movies."
Nice.
And I would turn them on to Murder Crows. And you know what they'd do? They'd come back and be like, "You're one of the good ones." That's what I got some real applause as a recommender of movies for Murder of Crows.
Wow, what a dream.
It really is.
It's like you're made for directing.
Or suggesting, at least. I'm made to suggest things.
You're like a folk hero.
Yeah. Well, like according to
tall tale.
According to Bob, the regular from the Brea Blockbuster Video, which has certainly been demoed at this point, I was a real hero one night.
You nailed it with Murder of Crows.
Yes, Murder of Crows really made him and his family have a wonderful evening, and I'm glad to say I was the reason for that. So well done, me.
Well, Ganser, I saw it.
Yeah, you saw it. You saw it. Just briefly,
I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't heard about it before.
Okay, great. Go ahead. I want to know honestly, what did you think of it? Go ahead. Go ahead and tell me.
I mean, it's a garbage movie, right? Like,
it's not good anymore. Yes,
it's not a good movie. It's the direction is baffling.
Yes, it
frankly.
is. Yep, I agree.
And it's overwrought in terms of the writing, the screenplay. I want to know. I mean, I've read kind of your thesis. I kind of want to know.
How am I going to do this?
What are we talking about?
How am I going to do this?
I kind of know because last episode you did Drive,
right,
and you talked about how a director can elevate a bad script.
Right.
That episode came out a few months ago, or like a month ago, and that I thought that was a great example of a director doing that. I assume what you're doing here is that you're gonna tell us how they can screw it all up.
That's right.
Is that right?
I'm doing the opposite, Abe.
Right.
I'm doing an opposite episode. This is my
yin and yang in this.
That's right. This is my George Costanza moment from season whatever of Seinfeld. I must do the opposite. No, so the premise of this episode, and I wanted it to be a companion to the Drive one, is so the Drive episode was how does a good director make a bad script or a script that's not great and better? How does he elevate a script? This is an episode about how does a director submarine or undermine a potentially good script. I'm not going to say good, a potentially good script. Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about. And in order for us to embark on this journey, we have to at least have a couple of caveats, right? So here's a few of them. One, I'm not evaluating a Murder of Crows' script on like a surface dialogue level, or I'm evaluating it on a structure and story level. So like on a structural level and on a story level, I thought this was a script that had a lot of potential.
The story is, it's like a thriller.
Yes, and also it's like a fairly clever one. For the late 90s in particular. It's very literary.
It actually kind of reminds me, there's a lot of zigging and zagging.
Yes, there is.
And so it reminds me of like a Coen Brothers movie.
A little bit.
In a weird way. If you just like not think about the movie, not think about the script, not think, like you don't know anything, and you were just to tell me the story of, like a lawyer who has got too much, like he's fast talking and like killing it in terms of his career, steps back and like has a moral quandary, turns his back on it, is kind of like ousted out of the community of lawyers, finds this guy who wrote a story about a book, and he's trying to write a book, and he reads the book, and this guy wrote an amazing book about lawyers. Then he dies of a heart attack.
Right.
You're fine with me doing all this
now.
I
have no problem. Right? Go ahead, please.
Because I think this speaks to, like, let's get the baseline for everyone.
Yeah.
This is just what the story is, and I think we're talking about separating those terms.
Yeah.
So he gets that book, and then he realizes I can get away with this because this man who wrote this book was old, and he died of a heart attack, and he literally told me, like, I don't no one knows about this book.
Right.
So he just publishes it having writer's block.
And because
he becomes like a millionaire.
And he's kind of aimless up to this point, right? Like he sort of lost his career and his dream. Yeah, and then this thing falls into his lap. It's seemingly hurting no one. He tries to return it, but the guy is dead.
So you have a guy who's like morally correct from the get-go,
right,
but realizes he's lost in life and does the bad thing and just, I can get away with it. It's victimless crime. Turns out that this guy was involved with the murders in the book, which happened to be brilliant, so he made millions of dollars, actually happened, and he knows all the details.
Right.
So we kind of deal with the mystery of, well, what's up with that? And now we have Tom Berenger coming after Cuba Gooding Jr., basically saying, like, you clearly did these crimes and you're going to jail.
Because how could you know this otherwise? And in order for him to get away from it, he would have to admit, I didn't write the book.
Like, if this was like a talented Mr. Ripley, it would just be the first premise, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's saying things that a lot of 90s movies said, which is like, people are evil every way they turn, especially in the law field.
Right.
Like Devil's Advocate very famously said that, and a couple other movies. But I kind of thought this was a fun... there was some legally minded, intelligent ideas in it, and I also like the literary piece of it a lot because that appeals to my particular background. And also, hey man, great works of literature are great for a reason, and the idea of this sort of almost Faustian bargain, like this almost Shakespearean twist, is cool. And when I was younger, I didn't see the flaws as a director as much, and I really enjoyed the movie.
Right.
And I think a lot of people who haven't recently seen it but saw it when they were younger think of it like, oh, this is good. This is a good movie. And if you go back and watch it now, you're like, oh no.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about, is why that impression. And I think a lot of people who are going to watch this for the first time might be like, this is a bad movie. What are we talking about? So we're talking about a story first, that the story has a lot of potential and has really good twists and turns. The execution of it is not so great, even on a writing level, but most importantly for our purposes, on a directing level, which is the point of the episode. So Abe and I have agreed, as the premise of this podcast, we're not going to bash directors for entertainment. That's not really the point of this podcast. I think, and I think you agree, Abe, that celebrating the work is important.
I do want to dunk on this guy a little bit.
You can dunk a little, but like I don't think that's actually good.
It's not the purpose.
Work here. I want to do good work too.
It's mean-spirited. I get all the reasons.
Correct.
I'm a little mean.
Yeah, I get it. You got a little Berenger in you. I know what you got to do. Yeah. Briefly, the reason I picked this film to do this topic is because the writer and the director are the same person. So on the one hand, I can sort of compliment some of the ideas, but on the other hand, sort of criticize the execution. And I think that's still a fair outing for our director, who is Rowdy Herrington. That's who directed and wrote this movie. He is probably most famous for Roadhouse. How many times have you seen Roadhouse, would you say, Abe?
I think only the once, to be honest.
Did you hate it? Did you like it? Where were you on that scale?
I was kind of indifferent about it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think that it's not exactly clever, but Roadhouse, I like the style of it.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I guess that would be it. I don't even actually remember like what the minutia of the plot is in Roadhouse.
So like Roadhouse is the story of like the A+ bouncer who gets hired to sort of like shape up this really feisty roadhouse with a lot of riffraff, which upsets the local town, and so he has to defeat some local guy who's trying to undermine everything. It's very 80s. It's like right in the 80s sensibility. It's very manic in the way that a lot of 80s movies were, and in sort of a Paul Verhoeven way almost, but not with that kind of craftsmanship. A little bit more sort of stagey, which we'll talk about a little bit later. That's the vibe. It's Patrick Swayze. I think Patrick Swayze is underappreciated as a lead because he kind of grounds these stupid ass movies. Like that's like one of the, he's very good at that.
Stupid.
Yeah.
And you're right. You're right.
He's really good at
he does ground it because he's never going to come to a project without being like, because he's like an actual actor. I mean,
right.
You know, like he's not trying to do character acting because that's what he's known for. He's just doing the standard protagonist, and he understands that's his function, and he doesn't really try to flaunt it. So he really makes the wackiness of the rest of the movie, or I guess the over stylized aspects of the movie, feel like, oh, okay, so this isn't like a play.
I think
that I'm watching that breaks the fourth wall.
I think Patrick Swayze had that sort of magical ability as an actor to kind of like sweep us up in the melodrama of these movies he was in so that we accepted them as a real world. Like I think that's like one of that, and dancing is like are like two of his most important talents. Cause like if you go back and watch Dirty Dancing even, or like even Point Break, or spoilers,
I was just going to mention Point Break.
They're all kind of silly, and he sort of grounds it with his over-the-top intensity. So anyway, we're getting way off track here. Roadhouse, it was sort of the big breakout for Rowdy Herrington, but I thought you, Abe, and also the audience would be interested to know his origins. So he started as a best boy electric in television. Like he worked through the electrical department.
Running cables.
Yeah. And he was like sort of a gaffer on a bunch of films. And then right before he broke out, he was a stage manager for the show Growing Pains, which means he's a guy who's worked in a lot of stages. He's done a lot of stage work. He's done a lot of lighting for contained spaces, from what I can tell. Like he's very much grown up in a sort of studio controlled environment. And then he sort of breaks out with a film he wrote that wasn't a huge hit, the name of which escapes me. But then he made Roadhouse, which sort of got him the credibility to continue writing and directing films for, 15, 20 years. And he did that. He did 8 of them, writing 5. And I think what we can take from that is that sometimes you can look at a filmmaker's journey through the ranks and know what they're going to be. Like sort of get a sense of what their sensibility is going to be. You've said this a lot about, for instance, Tony Scott. I would say Ridley Scott. You can look at his time in the art department and then watch the movie Alien and be like, oh yeah. So like this is a guy who's very production design conscious.
Yeah, and he cares about the space.
Yeah, and also he cares about shapes and artistic design in the sets in a way that directors before him probably didn't, and that's one of the things that made him so good as a director. So to summarize what I'm getting at here, Rowdy Herrington has a sort of TV/journeyman's sensibility. Like that's,
and by TV, do you mean like character emphasis, or do you mean just like shoot a lot of pages? Like what aspect of TV
all
are
of
you?
That. I think both of those things. I think his visual aesthetic is very television. His sense of character is very television. His blocking is very television. Like there's a lot of, and I don't mean like television like The Sopranos, like the single cam, like high art stuff. I mean traditional television, working in a studio.
Like ER.
Yes. Working in a studio and like doing the same thing every day and sort of repeatability. I think that's his sensibility. Now, Abe, does it surprise you, or does it excite you to learn that he was also a directing instructor at USC for 5 years? Does that excite you? It
excites me so much. Yeah, I'm turgid.
Please say more. Please say more, Abe.
I am turgid. It excites me a lot, man. USC. That's one of the things that you kind of come to learn about USC versus a place like AFI,
right? Which
is a conservatory. So you kind of go in with the kind of like you have a discipline at like AFI. So you like go, I'm going to be a cinematographer. I'm going to try out for the cinematography aspect of this school, and I'm going to get in or I'm not. And I'm not going to be considered to be a director or a sound engineer or anything like that. I am only this type.
I only do this thing.
At USC, it's a more top-down kind of consideration. They want they want to sell people on the idea that you come here and you will be like a storyteller.
Right.
And then you're going to find out by learning from the ground up what story's all about. And then by that, you're going to decide what your discipline you want to focus on.
I mean, so it's like, what they really mean, though, is come here and we will find a way for you to be employed in the entertainment industry if you're willing to do that.
Right.
That's what they really mean.
I also think that it's, I mean, I don't know, it's my alma mater, so I can't say it's too much shit, but my experience there led me to believe that they did that because, frankly, the only thing that should be really taught other than the scene of films should be the vocational aspects of making films. I agree with that. And USC wasn't the greatest at that, even though we had the best equipment and stuff like that. It still was... Like, they really didn't have us focus on what makes films on a mechanical level as much as they could have. And I always would say that I think the reason that they made it more inclusive is because they wanted everyone to feel like they're included so that they got more money.
I mean, of course, that's every film school. But they also, not kind of, definitely. They also... want to prevent people from dropping out because they don't want people to realize too early, oh, I'm not really a director. Like, they don't want people to realize that, so they kind of have more of a survey approach for the first
or the
year
opposite,
and a half,
which is more rare, which is like I kind of had that in 2010 where I was like, I was all about going to USC.
Right.
I didn't drop out of USC because I didn't need to. But I took a semester off.
Yes, you did.
And shot a film because I realized I was like, you know what? I am actually a filmmaker. I don't need you, USC.
I don't need school. I can just make it. Yeah. Which in some sense,
they were
you're
very
right.
good about it.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit for that. They'll be like, yeah, you just dip out and you dip back in and it's not going to be a problem. So in any case, I think that that's just kind of the worldview that I think that Herrington probably also buys into a little bit, definitely later in his career when he started teaching there.
Yes, I think he's actually kind of a good instructor for their philosophy as we've represented it.
Exactly.
As we've represented it. But anyway, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, so to return to our thesis here, A Murder of Crows is a script that has potential that's being undermined by the director. So I want to show exactly how that is happening. So first, I want to talk about broadly quality control issues. Okay, that's a thing in this movie with many manifestations. So this film suffers from a syndrome that I'm going to call Roadhouse aesthetic, and I'll define it in a minute, but Roadhouse aesthetic is the problem. So when you're a director, you are the person who people will approach at all times, day or night, and ask you to sign off on things, right? So that can be as simple as, do you like this location? Do you like this dress? Do you like this mask? Do you like this? Can we cast this person? Basically, every major decision gets finalized by a director because that is ultimately their job. They are the ultimate quality control. And their role in that respect is to make sure that there is a cohesion in the film to their vision. Like, that's sort of what is expected. Now, I don't want to make it sound like there's never any variation from that. There are definitely times when, like, producers or teams of producers will function in that role instead. So, like, Jerry Bruckheimer films are kind of a good example of that. Marvel movies, definitely an example of that, right? Where you have, like, Kevin Feige and a team of producers deciding stuff in the editing bay and so on. But for the most part, when a director signs off on something, that is the end of the creative process for that prop or that scene or that performance or that object or whatever. So, functionally speaking, and Abe and I both know this quite well, one of the ways that your sensibility starts to really show as an artist is based on what you say yes to in the film, right? Where you say, yes, I'll let that go. I'll let that be in the film. And oftentimes, especially when there's stress involved or when the gears of production start to grind on you, which they always do as a director, your sensibility begins to show at the expense of your motif or strategy. If people, for instance, aren't performing the way they should, or if there are things that you had to accept that you didn't like, or Worse, if your sensibility is not up to the motifs that you set out to do, which happens all the time in films. So what that means, just functionally speaking, is like, we're the people who say, yes, this is good enough. Like, that's our job. And if it's not good enough, it's our fault, no matter who made it. So with that in mind, I think it's fair to say Herrington's sense of good enough was definitely not good enough for the makeup in this movie.
Oh, geez. That character. What's his name? What's the character's name? The old man.
I forget. Right, because what's the name of it? The
guy who reads it. Charles. It's just Harlow.
Harlow. That's correct. Harlow.
Christopher Harlow.
Right, which is
because it's a reference to Kit Harlow.
Yes.
And literally, Cuba Gooding Jr. goes like, "I love this title," and it shows a shot of Christopher Harlow, and then he's like, it read like Shakespeare, and it's like, yeah, that's why we know the name Kit Harlow. We get it. Jeez, yes. Maybe I'm a snob. Maybe it's like because I've just seen, like, I don't know, like, I've read Shakespeare enough or watched Shakespeare in Love enough. I don't know what it is, but like that feels pretty common. Not like I'm dunking on it for saying like you make better references. It's just like it's the first reference. That's not
right. It's not a clever one.
It's not studied. Obscure. It's just that it's like 101 class. Like, all right, plays. Well, Shakespeare, like, here we go. And he does that a lot.
It's actually Marlowe. Sorry, it's not Harlow. It's Marlowe. It's Marlowe. Right, the famous writer who's a contemporary of Shakespeare's. Also is featured as is often the name of the PI in a noir film. So there's a double reference there. But like, I think the director believes
that's my bad.
That's okay. No, that's okay. I think the director believes with that connection that like they're saying that's how sort of like that's a giveaway for what the serial killer's motif is. Right? Like, I don't think it's like a straight, like, oh, the writer thought this was clever. I think it's like the writer is trying to indicate with that decision what kind of serial killer we have, which may not still be good enough, but like, and then again, this is all going to come down to like, do you think that's interesting or not? I didn't hate that much, but I didn't like it until I learned that fact. You know what I mean? Until I was like, oh, okay, I see why, because the serial killer is this guy.
I just think,
it's not great.
I think there's a few times this guy does that in this movie. I don't want to distract you from where you're going.
It's okay. No, I think you're right.
I think it's overwritten.
Thank you.
Way overwritten.
Thank you. But your notes on the makeup, though, sir, would be more germane here.
Yeah, the notes on the makeup. So that guy, he not only is like the base of the I noticed at the neck where they kind of have to seam together like the mask, the old man mask, and to make like jowls and such. It was like literally in shots and over the shoulder shots where it's like that's all you can see of that man.
Yes,
there were like clumps where he had clearly been turning his head to the left and right, and it had started to like pinch, and like it literally looked like a Party City mask.
Yeah, it's baffling that this got through.
Like you would on the day you would go, nope, I see that's bad. Makeup, fix that. We'll take the time necessary to do it. And then a good AD and a good producer is like, okay, we need to find a better solution before this, or we have to spend more time on the day, because that is not acceptable, right? Everyone agrees that can't happen.
Yes, that's below the line of clarity, I would argue. And that's like, to me, that's like one of the biggest standards as a director is like, are we sabotaging clarity with this thing not looking good enough? Because I think we are. I think, like, I understand his impulse, maybe. Like, I'm giving him generous interpretation now. Maybe his impulse is, well, I'm trying to make this guy sort of a low-rent serial killer so his mask might not look so good because he's, like, doing it himself in his basement or whatever. And, like, sure, but, like, that's convoluted. That's convoluted and bad.
Because it's not how it's presented. Right. We don't get the reveal that this is a guy in a mask until very third act, middle of third act.
But of course you know it because of how bad the makeup is. So like,
it does make sense.
Right, it makes sense, but again, not for clarity. It actually makes things unclear and makes us feel the seams in a way we shouldn't. And just so that people know that it's not just me and Abe being like pricks about this. Like, this is at a time when Mission Impossible and Mrs. Doubtfire had both come out. So those are two successful endeavors at really shooting very clearly somebody in a mask. And this is like the most important story beat in the story. So we should be investing money in this.
It's, this is so... All right, I want to talk a little bit. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is going to be a long episode because what you just hit upon is so very important. I love this conversation. The difference between someone who directs plays and directs films.
Yes, I wouldn't go too much into this because I'm gonna talk at length about this, but go for it. You can introduce it by all means.
Are you going to talk about how like a director chooses what we see?
Yes, and I'm going to talk about staging and lighting. That's basically on point here.
You already got it, baby.
No, but you're totally right. No, you don't need to. I don't want you to shut up. I at all. Please go ahead, but you're right on point because I am going to talk about that stuff. Hit it. Go for it.
Let's talk about when it organically comes up.
Great.
Then. I want you to do the first
God,
volleys.
You're so beautiful.
That's great.
God, you're so beautiful.
I'm so proud of you, man. This is such a well thought out.
He thought of things me thinks.
Yeah, and that's my barometer for success.
Yeah. No, but you're right. I mean, but that also should tell both of us that, like, as directors, we're both seeing the problem here.
And you're right about
we're
this.
both seeing the problem, and it's a directing problem primarily at this point. It's not actually the writing. So, just last thing, and I didn't write this in my notes, but it's a thing I thought about later. He also, the first time we see the killer, it's like right in the beginning when he's wearing the devil's outfit, and the facial makeup makes him kind of look like Tom Berenger. Right? He kind of looks like Tom Berenger, which the first time I watched it this time around, I thought was on purpose. And so I was like a little confused. And that's another thing where it's like, if you're a director, that's a thing it has to pop up to you. Wait. Do I want people to think Tom Berenger is the devil? Or do I want it to just be some guy? You know, and the director fucked that up because now we don't have a clear idea. Like, am I supposed to think it's Tom Berenger? And just because it's a mysterious movie doesn't mean all mysteries are good. You know, you want people to track. So anyway, I've made my hay out of that.
Yeah,
you get it. So like,
it's true. I didn't think about it as much as you did, but when I now think about it, I do. He does have, especially because we don't know. That's like the first 5 minutes, and the only things we know about the movie so far is that, like, you've probably seen a trailer, so it's like at the time. So you're like, okay, Tom Berenger's in it. He's got second billing to Cuba Gooding Jr. and it's a thriller. Got it. You know,
right? And he is probably the only person he's the only other person who we know. So like we're looking for him. You know, like the way we're looking for all the stars in the movie.
Exactly.
I just think that's a mistake, and I think that's a clarity mistake that the director made, not the writer. Okay, so just like briefly, this sense of good enough, like, so again, he had to sign off on this makeup, right? He had to say that's good enough, and he had to look at Tom Berenger's mask and be like, that's correct. That is what I'm going to refer to as Roadhouse aesthetic, and the reason why is Roadhouse had kind of a low bar for stuff like that. Right, it doesn't matter if makeup doesn't look great, or like if the chair's falling apart are kind of fake, or if the blood is silly, or like even just people's wounds and guns and stuff are a little bit silly because it's kind of a romp. And as you were about to say, it's very stagey. It's very theatrical, like a play, and stagey. And we're more interested in sort of the fun running around on set. And I think that is more Roadhouse aesthetic. It does not fit this movie. This movie needs to be told ideally in a sort of like Orson Welles fashion, right? Or like somebody who does thrillers, you know. So, you know, pick your favorite thriller.
It's a noir.
Yeah, it's
though,
noir, right? And Orson Welles is, I think, my favorite for establishing the rules of the genre, like Billy Wilder, guys like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's the kind of filmmaking we need here. And he's not doing that. He's doing sort of more of a romp in the way that he's directing this.
He's doing more of a Pelican Brief.
Yeah, except Pelican Brief is at least a little more restrained. See, I think part of the problem with Rowdy Herrington is like he has a sort of unrestrained sensibility, and I think he's just one of those nobody will notice it guys.
And he's getting in it. He's getting in his own way.
I think so. I think so. Now, so you've led me right to my next point, which is his sense of visual tropes. So his ideas about how to visually represent the movie also have this Roadhouse aesthetic problem. So the first thing is, and I'm not the expert in this that Abe is, so please jump in. The film is not lit creatively at all. There's no interesting lighting here. There's no there's not even things like negative fill or like shading, or just like hard
it's
light
flat.
even. There just isn't stuff that would make it feel like the genre it fits into. Sometimes it
feels like TV because everything's bright and there's no contrast face to face.
Correct.
So like in terms of like your sides of your face, like it's all the same brightness, and that's considered flat lighting.
Right.
And flat lighting is considered TV. So you can see everything because that's what people on TV want. And also people's TVs aren't tuned and color corrected like theaters are. So they just shoot for a balanced image. And this sensibility coming out of the format instructed how directors and cinematographers how to light TV, which is where this guy clearly comes from. And I think he's just ad hoc going to it because that's his sensibility, and much of all of our sensibilities are from where we came from.
Exactly, and that's where my theory about the fact that he's a journeyman, like Abe just perfectly articulated it. It is a TV movie. It's very similar, and it's also flawed. It's not just that it's TV; it's also flawed. So, like, what I mean by that is, for instance, at the 5-minute mark in this movie, when we meet Cuba Gooding Jr., he lights a cigarette and he has the lighter out, and then he closes the lighter, and there's supposed to be a light gag, like the light from the lighter leaves his face, but it's late.
It's just late,
and it just looks bad. And again, this is a director watching that saying, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like at the police station, which happens at the very beginning of the movie, there are lights on in the prison cells, and the hallway itself is black just so that we can see all the people in it. And it looks horrible. Like it just looks really bad. And it's not moody. It's like bad. It's like badly backlit in a way.
Did I ever tell you about the time in cinematography class where me and Michael Cox were getting our instructor angry because we got this huge like piece of gear. I think it's called lightning strike, and it's done in stages. It's this 20,000 watt bulb that has I don't know how they design it, but it's able to flash really quickly.
Okay.
But you can dial it down like a Vericam. So we would do weird, like we just had a running bit of like the weirdest lightning flashes you could ever see. Like it would crack, and then it would be really bright for too long.
Great.
And he's like, "Turn it off. What are you doing?" And then we'd slowly turn it off, like way too slow. Like it's just, and everyone was laughing because it really felt stupid.
Yeah.
It really made us all take a moment and look around. And that's what I think you're talking about with this. With a light gag that's too slow, you think of the movie. And now that you're thinking about the movie,
Everything
you realize how
is
stupid it is. Because they probably got that fern at Walmart. What he's wearing is bought at Goodwill. Right. This is an actor. He probably is going home tonight. Right. And it's all falling apart.
The artifice completely falls apart at that point in a way that is like, well, you know, most people are going to forgive it, which I think, again, is Rowdy Herrington's bet. I think everything he does in this movie is most people are not going to notice this. And he's right. But, like, it also doesn't do the thing that directors are supposed to do, which is draw you in. Like, it can't draw you in. If it's not successful, it can't. So even if the audience doesn't know why they're not drawn in, they're not being drawn in. You know what I mean? So like it's an impediment, and that to me is really important. One more point on this sort of topic. The film also kind of lacks like shots that shape the tone right? Or even the themes. So like we don't get shots or scenes that say more than the surface level of the plot.
That's exactly what I wanted to also point out, and I think you're absolutely right about the play aspect of Herrington.
Right.
Because the philosophy goes that like the difference between directors of plays and directors of movies is that there's one fundamental difference between the format of the medium, which is that in directors of films, you actually have to present to the audience a shot, a crop of the reality that's like playing out of look at this insert, look at this face now, look at this two shot, look at this person arriving, right. Look at this person exiting. And so you frame literally everything that is seen.
You're creating, in theory, a meaningful sequence. Yeah. A sequence that has not only the meaning in terms of what just happened, but the meaning of what does it mean.
But my eyes in a play, like if I'm sitting down and watching a play, I can go look at that actor or that actor or that actor, and I'll completely miss a moment where like one actor is like shedding a tear or something that's important to the plot, let's say, or to the meaning or to the trope or to the style. Anything that all those could be lost. And this guy doesn't realize that he's got a toolkit in his pocket to make me understand, and he just doesn't use it.
So, like, just to put a point on the thing you just said, the first shot of the movie, the very first shot of the movie is a very long, slow zoom out of barbed wire on, like, the prison where we're going in the rain. And
that jazz,
it's this long,
though.
Well, it's actually blues, and it's horrible. We're going to talk about that in a second.
It's blues?
Yeah, it's like blues guitar. Yeah, it is. Okay. It's really bad. So like he zooms out of this barbed wire on the rain, right? Like, and it's like very sad. And then you ask yourself for like just 1 second. So like, does this hold a metaphorical significance? No, it's literally just what happened. Like it's literally just, this is the plot. And like, and isn't it sad? Yeah. And isn't it crimey? Like it's just a shorthand for what is going to happen. Not for the underlying themes that make a story interesting. You know? That's...
Rowdy, what are you doing? Well, making the beginning of the movie.
Right, it's when the story begins. And it's like, again...
It's the credits and then the beginning.
Right, so like, just, very brief contrast. I don't know, pick a Coen Brothers movie. I guarantee you their first image is going to be something that matters. Like...
it's going to be like a... postcard for the theme, or like a clever metaphor for what you're about to watch transpire.
Right. They just like, I mean, and not that every director is perfect all the time. And we're starting to get into bashing Rowdy territory. But it just shows you that this is not a director who's like embedded in the themes of the script, even though they wrote the script. So the director here kind of believes the job is to render the plot. And the themes will sort of occur to people. And it's like, no. As a director, your job is to highlight the themes and to use sophisticated visual language to make us feel them. And I don't think the director is doing that in this case. And I kind of believe this script deserved to be rendered that way. Like imagine if Sidney Lumet. If Sidney Lumet had made this film. Yeah. Like how good it would, or Billy Wilder. Same story. Billy Wilder does it. Can you even imagine how great it would look?
Well, I mean, because they're greats.
Well, that's what makes them great. They're greats, but also they're skilled at the very thing that's missing here.
Exactly.
Okay, so also on this thread, the camera moves are mostly just transitions. They are not emotional enhancements.
It's literally going through the motions.
It's literally bringing us to the next thing. Again, it's very theatrical. Like it's like a play, like a moving play, where it's like, and then this car carries us into the prison, and he walks into the prison, and we walk to his cell. And I have no problem with that. I've done plenty of shots like that, but it doesn't enhance the emotions that we're experiencing at all. It just sort of brings us to them. That's not awesome in terms of I would call that Roadhouse aesthetic because it's very, let the action play out. Lastly, and I'm so glad you brought it up because it makes me very happy, the music choices. So like that bluesy music that feels like elevator music is Number one, it's very bad. It's very TV. So it just doesn't have the complexity or feeling of movie music of the time. Which was all, the 90s had a lot of great movie music in it, so that was surprising. And more than that, it doesn't match the circumstances, it matches the broad stroke activities of the scene. So, like, you couldn't imagine music in this movie that sort of, like, highlights an action, for instance. Or undercuts an action, for instance. It's just sort of like a big blast of fire hose.
It's just there like carpet.
Yes.
It's just, you put it on the floor, and it's there, and you walk on it, and it's everywhere. It's fine.
Correct. Very similar to the melodrama of television. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's sort of the aesthetic here. It's the Roadhouse aesthetic.
It's the choices though themselves, and like the smorgasbord of things combined that gives you its final image and sound. It's like someone told him, like, can you try to do, like, you ever seen David Lynch? Like, it's like, I don't know if he tried to or didn't. He probably didn't. He was just doing his thing.
I think it's the opposite.
Which is great.
I really think it's the opposite because, like, yeah, it does feel like things that David Lynch likes. Like, David Lynch does like TV movie aesthetic. He likes it. But see, David...
Like Twin Peaks specifically.
Like Twin Peaks. But David Lynch also uses those things to, like, push emotions that you don't expect.
No doubt. I'm not throwing shade on David Lynch. I'm just saying his aesthetic, because it's so, like, motley.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, oh, it's a rainy day. Oh, I am hearing the smooth solo of blues guitar. And when I say slow, it's like slower. Like, when I say slow, like, think of the slowest blues you've ever thought of, and think of the solo to that. And it's like, and it's like got a lot of reverb. And it's like, no, it's slower than that.
But it's not.
It's again, like delicious warm butter.
So, like, contrast it with a movie like Dead Man. Dead Man has that incredible Neil Young blues solo stuff that is like the score.
That's Jarmusch,
yes,
right?
Jarmusch,
Yeah, that's
I also think has a real problem with theatricality. But he's at least doing something interesting with it. But he does have a tendency to.
He's always next level. He's like
Well,
Jarmusch is a madman.
He's really
an actual madman.
I like. Sometime we should talk about Ghost Dog: Way of the Samurai, because I actually super like that movie. It's maybe one day. So, like, Jarmusch in that film, he, like, uses Neil Young's guitar like a sort of like almost like another voice. It's almost like another line of dialogue, and I think it's really fascinating. That's the opposite of what's going on here. Okay, so just to move on, like, so those are the camera craftsman things, and they all add up, as Abe just alluded to, in the sum total, to kind of drag the feeling of, wow, I'm in a great movie down, right? Like, you just don't have that feeling of, wow, I'm in a great movie, and you don't have that emotional attachment to the subject matter because it's not being told very well. So the biggest problem, I think, from a directing point of view is that the director did not give adequate previous circumstances to the actors in this movie. So I know that's going to sound brutal, and I'm sure Rowdy Herrington, if he ever hears this, will try to murder me, and I don't blame him. And hey, man, you did better than I've done so far, so I'm not...
He'll write a book about killing 5 podcasters.
And then I'll submit it. Yeah.
And then I'll send them to Tom Berenger for no reason.
I'd love if he just picked a random one of us, of our little network, and, like... It's like, I could turn this in for money.
It's you, me, Michael, Bridget, and I don't know, Schmitty.
It's gonna be Bridget. It's gonna be Bridget.
It's gonna be
of
Bridget.
Course. She's so wonderful, but still young. She might fall for it. I love you, Bridget. I hope you're hearing this. So, the actors here are missing previous circumstances. Okay, so what I mean by that is that sometimes. For an actor to believably be the character that we are experiencing and that is carrying us through this narrative, we need to get a sense of who they were before the movie started and before the scene we're in started. We need to get both those things. So I'm going to give you, like, one of my favorite movies for this, and that movie is Heat. Excellent movie, really great. It's done by Michael Mann, and it's got Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in it. that's a movie where
it rips.
It's fucking great. It's so fun. It's got that great shootout scene in the middle of Los Angeles that everybody is aped from time immemorial. And and so the thing that makes it so cool is every time we get sort of a moment alone with either Al Pacino or De Niro in that movie, we sense all the things that have happened in their life before that moment that have added up to this person. So like and it's not even like you can't look at them and be like, yeah, last Tuesday they went to the grocery store and then the month before that their mom died. It's not specific to that. It's that they are emotionally at the point where those things have happened and you can feel it.
Right.
And you can feel it in the way that they deliver lines, and you can feel it in the way they interact with other people, in their beliefs, all that stuff. So in this movie, in general, the characters don't seem to have a strong sense of who they were before the movie started. It's
like sketch.
Yeah, a little bit.
You exist for a role.
Right, a little bit. It doesn't have the grounding that most great performances do. And I think Cuba is a great actor, by the way.
I do. I think he's done some really good performances.
He didn't have the thing that makes him feel like a real person to start the movie. Now, I liked the way he
doesn't have context.
Right.
He doesn't really have context.
Right, which we would call previous circumstances for our craft. So, like, just so that everybody can see exactly what I mean, the first thing in the movie is that he has a crisis of conscience. And it does explain plot-wise why it happens. Right, which is Eric Stoltz's character betrays, like, I told her I'd get away with it. And so Cuba knows that, he knows I'm defending somebody who's guilty. But what we don't really see in the performance is the first, we don't see the ambition of the lawyer who he used to be. Second, we don't see the weight of that in his decisions. And we don't see like sort of the expectations, like the things that would make him feel driven as a lawyer and then also feel like weightless, like he's falling into an oblivion when he loses all that. Those things are not there. And it's not because he's a bad actor. It's because those things were not built by the director before the movie started.
In fact, there's times where it like is loudly and clearly like begging for you, like Herrington knows that you need to do this, which is weird because he doesn't address it, because he does address it on a script level where he says like the reason that he's defending this man, Cuba Gooding Jr. is he's defending Eric Stoltz because they are friends from the past. As children, they're friends. We never once hear them talking about being friends.
Correct.
They don't seem to have a relationship that's anything like having a friend. They seem procedurally like, I'm your lawyer, you're my client, and then it goes bad almost immediately, and you see none of that. And it's weird because it's like he addressed it in the writing, but then didn't make scenes that actually made me feel that was what you were going for.
We don't have the sense of betrayal that makes that work.
And it's like firing a bunch of red herrings off in the theater. And, like what one do I look at?
Just so everybody's clear, actors, even great actors, need to be pushed to put these things in their performance because they're not just going to build it on their own. Now, like there might be some exceptions, like maybe Daniel Day-Lewis builds it all on his own. I'm sure there's some that are exceptions, but I think in general, even great actors like Al Pacino and De Niro, we've seen them be in movies where they weren't so great. And it's probably because the director didn't say, hey man, we're missing what came before, which is just, it's a thing you have to do, you have to do it.
Yeah. It has to be agreed upon, or it doesn't even have to be agreed upon. It just has to be
present.
There.
That's right. Yeah. So just another example, Lawson's assistant, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s friend, I guess. Why does she ever help him? Do you know why? Or do you understand?
Are you talking about the assistant as the woman, like his paralegal / friend?
Yes,
or
the friend.
his,
yes, the paralegal / friend.
So from the beginning of the movie, I have no
Is she attracted to him?
I don't know, but I also didn't get the feeling necessarily that they were trying to make us feel that there was attraction.
Is it just because she's nice?
I think it's she's looking out for him and she's just a friend. I think that's all he's really trying to do there. I think, I'm if I'm guessing where you're going, it's kind of like, it does seem they filled that detail in because they were given nothing on the day. No rehearsal for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to at least say the product doesn't show us that. And Rowdy Herrington, that's his job, is to make sure it does. And when the answer is, hey, they're just friends, then I should see the friendship. I should see it in a way that I understand in a performance. Yeah,
exactly.
And I don't.
Or I shouldn't see attraction. I'm muddying up the waters by doing multiple things. Yeah, it's a hat on a hat.
Right, there's no clarity, and there should be. So there's that.
Yeah.
And just so everyone understands, the thing that makes a narrative truly compelling is when you feel like you understand the emotions of the person who's going through the journey and connect to them. And in order for us to do that, we have to believe in the person. We have to feel like we know that person, and then we have to feel like we relate to that person. And so the previous circumstances are huge windows into the believability, the vibrancy of that person. It's frankly why actors do all these crazy things you hear them doing to get prepared for a role, like losing weight or like Daniel Day-Lewis becoming a cobbler or like any of that stuff, right? Like oftentimes, maybe those aren't the best examples, but there are many examples of actors going through experiences to get prepared for a role because they want to bring the previous circumstances. So there's that. So the last thing, and it's also a directing actor's problem, and this is where Abe's point about this being a play is going to really soar, is the staging of the actors or blocking is a little unimaginative. So I can't say exactly how many, but I think even in the first 15 minutes, there's 4 or 5 scenes that start with people standing somewhere waiting for the camera to show them so they can start doing the scene. And the whole movie has that feeling of we're waiting for the scene. Here it is. And the actors aren't doing things people would do.
That's some bushling shit, man. Clean entrance, clean exit.
Right. Well,
fucking solved it for you,
I mean,
buddy.
And just to be clear, if somebody went back through my old catalog of cracked videos, they would see some pretty bad intro outros. When I was writing this down, I thought about the poker game that was being played in the what if we're all puddle of mud sketch. You remember that puddle of mud sketch? So
yeah, I love that.
Me too. Sketch. But you remember you were off doing Jerry Potter stuff, as I recall. So I kind of had to throw that together, and Coxie and I were trying to figure out how to make some kind of a dolly shot without a dolly. And so he ended up just sort of walking the camera. And the point was supposed to be the window reveals the guys, but it's very clumsy and dumb and doesn't help the movie. Mm-hmm. And so I understand why Rowdy Herrington got in this situation. I got into it too. But it still doesn't work.
But we're getting into the territory of he's not being intentional with his work to literally... He's making mistakes that film students make.
Yes, I agree with that.
The lack of preparation, the lack of clarity of thought on just the job is now begging the question. The work is begging that question now, because it's like I said, I wasn't just being flippant about clean entrance, clean exit. Those are terms that they teach you in film school. Very simple terms that it's when you don't know quite what you want, because this will happen sometimes, and guess what, it's good to have a plan B. What if I'm not prepared? Well, here's the strategies you employ. If you're unprepared in answering a question from an actor about what's my backstory and you don't have an answer to it, don't try to make something up. No, ask them back.
Yes, engage in a dialogue.
So let's figure it out together. They teach you ways and methods and protocols, essentially, that are effective by other people who have done the job for years and years that you aren't privy to, who have said this is some good wisdom. There is a very simple wisdom that is if you don't know, just shoot a clean entrance exit. You'll find it in editing, because if he enters the room from the beginning, that may not work. You can just cut into while he's walking in. You can crossfade now if you feel like that's the tone that you want to do for that edit. You just give yourself options. You give yourself handles when you shoot. You don't call cut the second you have it. Stuff like that. Normal director stuff.
Right. I mean, yeah, we don't seem to have that. And again, my feeling is most likely we're dealing with a director who thinks, who's like, this is good enough. That's the feeling that I get. I added this because I knew it would tickle your heart the way that it tickled mine. There are multiple melodramatic thunderclaps in this movie.
Oh yeah, he loves that.
There are thunderclaps with lightning at times that enhance the emotions of the scene. There's one at 12 minutes that I paused it and wrote this down because that's how furious it made me. I was like, no, what?
Why?
Come on, man.
It's because it's because he's tonally trying to go for like a spooky vibe, I guess. You know,
but it's not. But again,
like, who does that? Like, well, let's unpack like what films
comedy directors do that.
Those
comedy directors do it. You know, when
right.
Yeah, I think he'd be a very good director of like a Blues Brothers movie. Like, I think he would do a hell of a job with that. I can imagine.
But would he know that that's what he is the question.
I don't think he does.
Like, I think he just does it. That's kind of what keeps bringing me back to like the Tommy Wiseau of it all.
Well, he's not Tommy Wiseau. You know? Like, this man is a competent journeyman, at least.
I don't know, man. There is a legitimate sequence that I laughed at for the same reasons that I laughed at like The Room, like the editing, there's a sequence where right when Cuba Gooding Jr. is arrested.
Yes. Yep.
Right. And he's taken into custody because, you know, and then it cuts to the TV, a newscast where it says that this is what's happened. He's taken into custody, did the crimes. And then it cuts, we realize who's watching the TV is Stoltz.
Yep.
And he's sitting there on what I assume, like, I wasn't sure what they're trying to say because it's like a shitty apartment. And I thought he was like a rich kid, you know?
Right.
Like,
he's supposed to be very wealthy.
He's in a robe. There's not any furniture in the room other than a couch and a TV. It's like they just said, what do we need for the scene? A couch and a TV.
It's like they said, what have we got? that was the answer.
And I can't believe you didn't mention this so far. He's sipping on orange juice.
Right. It's like his Pulp Fiction characters showed up for this scene.
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah. Weird choice. Like, why not? And then he sits on the couch, and as he celebrates Russell getting charged for the murders, this woman who's like scantily clad walks over and like he's like clearly indicating to the women in the room, I'm now going to party. It's party time because they all like kind of flock to him, and he has his orange juice, but there's no table. So what does he do? He sets the glass of orange juice on the couch, and it like teeters over, and immediately I lost all frame of reference for like what am I worried about in the scene? What's the scene about? All I'm thinking about now is that orange juice gonna fall over? Is it gonna spill? And it's gonna be hilariously just like an utter mess, just like the sequence. Because it was amazing. It's Tommy Wiseau-esque. I'm not saying because Tommy Wiseau doesn't understand.
So wait. Yes, we need to make a massive distinction between Tommy Wiseau and this guy. So like this guy,
absolutely. But it's like,
so this guy he does not value the emotional work of directing at a level that makes him a craftsman that we would look up to. He does not do that in this film. Tommy Wiseau is an incompetent fool who thinks anybody can be a director and proves that is not true. Like, this guy can direct a scene. It just isn't going to be, it's not going to have the robust energy of, insert your favorite director here.
No, there'll be no charm in it at all. I understand that distinction. I'm glad you made the distinction. I am literally saying his choices in that orange juice sequence, because I'm calling it the orange juice sequence now. It is no longer about the movie. It's about the freaking orange juice. And that is Tommy Wiseau-esque. It is literally a choice that Tommy Wiseau would make. Like, let's not give the guy a table. He's just gonna set it on the pillow, and hope for the best. It literally like wobbles for like the 3 seconds that we see before we cut away.
I think that tells you that the thing that Tommy Wiseau and this man's failings have in common is the assumption that the audience isn't paying attention to that stuff, and that like the mundane details of a scene aren't really that important, and like that sometimes you just kind of gotta knock a scene out, and who gives a shit? Like that's at least what his work suggests.
Lazy.
It feels lazy to me.
Lazy.
Again, I'm not trying to bash this guy. I just think like it undermines the sort of passionate craftsmanship of a story that has a lot of twists and turns and moral parable to it that I like. I think, and again, if I was the writer of the script and I wasn't the director, and the director did all this stuff, I would be disappointed. And we both have been in this situation where the writer disagreed with what we did, and I've never intentionally given the writer cause to feel this way about a movie. This is the very last way I would want somebody who gave me a script to feel. So I can't even imagine what it's like when you are the writer to care enough to make a script that has all this stuff in it, and then as a director to get like, let's just get going here. Like, I don't know if they're under a time crunch or money crunch or what, but that's I don't understand it. So I want to transition to a conclusion, and then of course, then Abe, it's potpourri. Then it's really time. Sure. I want to say it is not bad that TV movies or Roadhouse aesthetic, like those are not inherently bad things. It's entertainment, and there are a lot of people who like the sort of obvious, sort of almost low intensity filmmaking like this. It's why Lifetime as a channel exists. It's why CBS comedies exist. It's why, lots of stuff. A lot of people want the kind of, I'm going to call it toothless. That's maybe a little harsh. The sort of muted thrillers and the sort of sanguine comedies more than they want their deep darkness, But to me, that kind of entertainment does not challenge the audience or move them very deeply, and therefore doesn't do the thing that I think it makes the best entertainment, which is make us look at ourselves. That's, to me, the best entertainment is something that makes people reflective about themselves. And this is a movie that is about a moral parable. So, like, I do think it's important for him to be held to the standard of his own endeavor, and he didn't meet it. And it's a shame that the director here did not care enough about the writer's material to do a more elevated overall job with the material.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's my piece.
I really like this episode, or I like this presentation, because I think it's something that sometimes even I miss, because we're trying to find and talk about ways that direction is interesting, but this is like a suit, and therefore you kind of you grab at, and you kind of started with a caveat that you gave at the beginning, which was like, we're not here to dunk on this guy. Like, I think what's very tempered about how you've approached this is you're trying to establish the clear indications to, if let's say someone were to, God forbid, attempt to become a director, like if they were to try to see, like, get so focused, because there's so many things, so many disciplines, so many tools, so many people to collaborate with on any given set, that it's easy to lose the forest for the trees.
I think that's actually the secretly hardest thing about directing.
I think it is. I think it's the many irons on many burners. Yeah. It's like it's just I want to point out that it's true that I think that this guy. I don't mean ill will to him. I just think that this movie and this execution is either lazy or non-selective. And that is what I think you're pointing out as saying, look, you need to charm us. Fundamentally, you are entertainment. And I think you said that very well. And so we're kind of discussing like the presentation of scenes and the results of scenes as a viewer. That's what we're kind of trying to sieve all of this information from. You need to be you need to tailor every moment. And they tell this to editors all the time, because in the end, the editor is the person who cuts out all the unwanted bits. That's why we're constantly comparing ourselves, like our rough drafts or our dailies, to, the greatest hits. Because when they're the greatest hits, like Mank just came out, right? And David Fincher is well known to be, and he discusses it himself. He's like, there's no such, like, I don't understand why acceptable is okay.
Right, of course.
Like, I understand that that's literally what the word means, but like no one has ever told me that is an acceptable scene, and that's what I'm striving for. I'm striving for perfection. Like, I want perfection, but I'll deal with exceptional. Like, that will be fine. That's my minimum. I want perfection. I don't always get it. And the fact that this guy, and TV movies, and there's a whole bunch of media that comes from this, like directors of reality TV show. We had to deal with this when we were doing, like, we have bigger aspirations as directors ourselves, and we're at cracked.com. We're not, like, when we were at Cracked and we were making sketch comedy, like bullshit, make 'em up jokes about poop for the internet, we're not trying to say that we're lofty directors there. We're trying to do the best job we can at the job that we're given. And that's what the job needed, is for us to be, like, kind of transparent and funny. He didn't do that here.
Yeah.
He didn't do his job.
I guess, like, and I don't want to sound jealous or whatever, but like, he's in a position as a writer who is directing his own film to do the thing that all of us dream. This is like, that is the dream, to like, a thing I wrote, we're now going to make that, and I have money to make it, and the big star, like, that's the dream. And I can't say exactly how this product arrived, like the circumstances that created it.
Maybe it is back against a wall.
I mean, it could be like he might not have had enough money, or a bad AD, or there's any number of possibilities. Although, by the way, Cuba was a producer on this, so I have to feel like Cuba probably got him more resources, right? Anyway, like, it's like, this is just what I would not want my work to feel like if this was my script, and you know what I mean? Like, this is the way I'm like, I don't want people to think this way about me. I don't mind when people think like, oh, I don't like what you do. Like, it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
you didn't like my movie. I get it.
Perfect.
That bums me out. Like, I can't say it doesn't hurt. It definitely hurts. I've had it happen.
For sure.
But like,
we're all flawed in the way that we want people to love us. But like, also, that's why there's different directors. Right. Go enjoy
enjoy the works of Abe, like, or whoever.
You go have a good time.
And that's fine. And like, it's okay to make a thing that people don't like. It's not okay to make a thing people could like if you weren't in the way. You know what I mean? That's like, I mean, all I can say is this is a very competitive field. I don't know how long a person can get away with doing that anymore. Maybe longer than I'd like to admit, but God willing, if ever there comes a day that I'm in this situation, Abe, don't let me be lazy. I know you'll be like hearing about it.
Just one in the brain.
Just need an Abe.
Just take you out.
Listen, I need to have a quick meeting. Guys, let's take lunch. Then pistol right in the brain.
Yeah, right. That's where you were going with that.
Yeah, you were right on point.
Okay,
you were right
good.
on point.
All right, cool.
You were right on point. Well, hey, you remain beautiful, and what a great time we had. And I still kind of miss that guy, don't you?
Yeah. Where'd that guy go? Well, we'll probably find out next episode, or not. We're not really planned here.
We don't plan
One
stuff.
thing I'll say about this series is it's lazy and non-selective. I think that's a good place to stop, right? Yeah, we don't even need an ending. Maybe I should just cut off right as I'm saying this.
I know you did
I'm
it already.
actually probably literally going to cut
I know you already did
as I'm saying that.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!